The Washington Post ran this image with the message, "Love is stronger than hate." The Canberra Times released this cartoon today in support of their fallen colleagues. And France's Le Telegram has posted this image showing cartoonists on a monument to the death of free speech. Well, here in Canada, many cartoonists are also showing solidarity. We want to show you this cartoon created by Terry Mosher, also known as Aislin. He's the political cartoonist for the Montreal Gazette. He himself has faced threats as a result of his work, and he joins us now on the phone. Terry, I'm curious, first of all, your reaction when you learned what had happened today in Paris.
Well, of course, the shock, as everyone else, but then realizing that this is my trade, really. And, you know, I was familiar with one of the cartoonists there, or had corresponded with one of the cartoonists, and certainly was familiar with the work of the others. Now, you have to remember, this magazine has paid a horrendous price. I mean, it is one of the best and most courageous platforms of its kind for satire in the world, and it's paid a price for that.
Certainly that courage, as you say, comes with the risk. Do you think that, in spite of the cartoons that we just looked at that have been created today in response to this, that cartoonists will be sort of, I guess, recalculating the risk, trying to decide whether they push further in response or whether they need to draw it back because there is a reason to be afraid?
Diana, frankly, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. We have the example of the cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad that were drawn in Denmark in 2005. And at that time, there was a similar reaction amongst the cartoonists all over the world. In other words, denouncing the activities that were denouncing, in effect, the Danish newspaper. The cartoonists were in solidarity. If there is any good news out of this, what I like that I'm seeing today is the public is really getting behind it. Back then, there wasn't the public support for the cartoonists that there is now.
As I mentioned earlier, you've come under threat as well because of your work. When that happened, how did you respond?
Well, it's happened a number of times, and some people might just say I'm doing my job because it's inevitable that if you're going to be controversial, that some people are going to be very upset and come at you. I guess very shortly, the biggest thing that happened was a demonstration against the Gazette, my newspaper, in 1997, when I had drawn a very strong cartoonist critical of the radical Islamists and their act in Luxor, a terrorist event back then. You know, where thousands of demonstrators showed up, and the newspaper was burned in effigy. But it's not that it was water off our back, but we understood that was totally organized. It wasn't sort of a number of angry readers. It was an organized event by an outfit in Washington.
Terry, I want to ask you to talk about the craft, about the importance of political satire, because there may be people who are listening to this and saying, you know, is it worth it to create a cartoon? Yeah, why would you put yourself at risk for this?
I think that's a very important point to talk about, and hopefully in the discussion that follows this tragic event, that will become a factor. Look at it this way. Nobody in the world is perfect. No institution is perfect, and God knows no religion is perfect. And so in recognizing, part of the process in recognizing those imperfections is laughing at them. That's kind of the healthy thing to do in an individual or in a society. So the question becomes, are we able in our society to be able to do that? In Canada, we're very good at it. We poke fun at the Prime Minister all the time. We poke fun at religions, certainly Rob Ford's, all of these people when they make mistakes. It's an accepted part of a democracy, this business of satirizing our public figures. But there are areas in the world where you can't do that. And I think it's a good way of judging a society.
We've been talking in this past hour or so, in fact, about the fact that this sort of political satire, the culture of it, is part of French culture, in particular in France. Does it surprise you that of all places this has unfolded there today, where there is a certain level of tolerance for that kind of discourse?
It's a bit of a shock, yes. But on the other hand, this is an issue that's very much in the public eye, probably far more so than here in Canada, where there are confrontations between the French population and immigrants, people who have arrived, many of whom are Muslim. So it's a huge contentious issue in France, much less so here in Canada, thankfully. Perhaps we're a little better at welcoming newcomers. I'm not too sure what the reason is. So it's not as much of an issue here. Therefore, we don't deal with it as much.
We talked about your own experience with this and that you've been threatened before, and you have a long career behind you to draw on in terms of how you want to deal with those kinds of things. But do you think, as a community at large, cartoonists will be able to push forward and confront this?
I'm not worried about that one bit. I mean, I've already been in touch with 4 or 5 very good friends who are cartoonists in Australia. And I guess because of the internet now, there's instant sort of back and forth in terms of what we're drawing and this, that, and the other. I'm not worried about that one bit. Certainly in those countries, Diana, where this freedom is really quite important to everyone. Places like Australia, certainly New Zealand, France, many other countries in Europe have satirical publications, much like Charlie Hebdo. I mean, you have Private Eye in England and so on.
We've been showing, as an introduction to this interview with you, some of the cartoons that have been created that are being published even as we speak and into
quite
tomorrow.
Strong, aren't they?
They are. I mean, they really are compelling, and they say a lot in a one simple illustration. I want to show yours now that you have ready for the Montreal Gazette tomorrow, that you've released today. We're going to show it in just a moment. I wonder if you could walk us through what you were thinking and what you want to communicate with it.
Well, I think the cartoon shows holy books, if you will, certainly the Bible, the Quran, and so on. And the question is, and your religion is. And what I like about Charlie Hebdo, of course, this is a contentious issue with the Muslims, but the fact of the matter is Charlie Hebdo confronted all religions. And on one of their covers, they had rather radical Christian, radical Muslim, and a radical Jew saying that Charlie Hebdo, the magazine, should be veiled. In other words, it should be covered. It's sort of a play on words. And I thought that was quite brilliant. So I'm asking people, in effect, who do you really side with? Strict religions that preach at you, or a wonderful magazine that pokes fun at us at all? And that's sort of my pick. That's indicated in the. I've always had a lot of fun poking fun at religions, as I'm allowed to do here. So I'm a little shocked when other people are punished for it.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this, Terry.
Thank you, Diana.